Right, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. There is a bit of an issue with the microphones, so we're going to do without them, if that's okay. People have to speak up. So, item 1 on the agenda, apologies for absence. I have apologies from Councillor John Strachan. I think everyone else is present. Are there any declarations of interest? None. The minutes of the previous Cabinet meeting on 10th of November on pages 4 to 6, are they an accurate record?
Very.
One of those. Thank you. Are there any matters arising? None. We have no written questions from the public. Item 6, we have 2 written questions from Councillor Johnson.
Happy to take them both as read.
And the reply. And do you have a supplementary? Hello. Right, thank you. Item 7, a petition. Would you like to shout? So the microphones aren't working, so you just have to speak up. Yeah, you just sit down. It's a little bit more informal. And you have 3 minutes.
Thank you, Leave the Council, for having me here today. I've been asked to come here by the shopkeepers and businesses of the Stow in Harlow to come again to urge that the Council consider the 5-point plan that they have devised with myself and with the local businesses. These include the increase of police presence and CCTV, the improvement of signage, the short-term financial support in terms of waiving rents. Many of the shopkeepers are suffering and cannot afford to pay their rents at the moment because of the lack of shoppers in the Stow. Urgent reinstatement of the road through the shopping area and the extension of free parking beyond an hour. I want to give particular thanks to Shelley and Tina at the salon. They're busy doing the Christmas market tomorrow. That's why they're not here this evening. They say, and other businesses say, that none of them have been properly consulted on or even were aware of the council's plans for the Stow's regeneration by the council. The meeting for local residents had just 7 residents attending, and the meeting was regarded by the shopkeepers as inconclusive and no action points to take away. The reason why they've asked me to come here again and present this petition, which has been signed by 54 local businesses, is to say that the council needs to implement some of their ideas and others urgently, and to come out with an action plan with a time frame of things that they can do to help the Stow shopkeepers now, because they believe if something is not done within the next few weeks, many of the shops will have to close and the small businesses will have to close over the coming months.
Tony Durkin, who's the portfolio holder, and actually was at the
Chair, can I ask the portfolio not to swear? I think that was frankly disgraceful. We should withdraw that remark, because I've watched you say it, Councillor Purden. If you want another standards referral, that is extremely rude.
Councillor Durkin.
Okay, well, thank you very much for presenting the petition. I'm not sure, Rob, when the petition was actually sent in, but 2 weeks ago, both myself and the local councillors, with the police, youth offender teams, an independent local business advisor, our community team, and Will Hale from our lease, all went to meet business leaders in the Stow, and we had about 10 to 12 different businesses who came together to discuss these particular issues. What was very interesting is, even though you have got these signatures, none of the businesses, except for one, actually agreed with what these statements were. And very quickly, just to update, all of them were very grateful for the increase of policing that had taken place in the 12-week period, and now they're in the final phase of the step down. Most of the shopkeepers actually now wanted the police to move away from the Stow because they thought that that was a negative distraction and stopping people going there. But what they were concerned about is because of the cuts that have been taken place by Essex County Council and the Commissioner of Police and the lack of local policing, they did have concerns about that. In relation to CCTV, it is true that that is being updated and was being updated. The photos that are taken from a static when people are standing still are quite clear, and you can actually use them in a court. It's the CCTV needs to be increased where we are following people around that isn't clear enough that we can actually identify the individuals, and that's being picked up and being addressed. In relation to the signage, that was always part of our short-term ambitions for not only the Stow but for Bush Fair, because you actually know that both of them look inwards, and unless you actually know what's in there, there is no reason for you to stop, to park and have a look. And certainly we're working with the local businesses to put some new designs up there on the main roads to make sure people are aware. Now, these won't be adverts for shops, the name shops, because they change so quickly, but it will be something that will be attractive to bring people in on that one. In relation to your position that the businesses are failing, well, certainly we met with all the businesses, and our independent advisor offered to meet with all the businesses. And today I can confirm only one business has approached the council to see whether or not we can do something to support them in a short-term reduction of their rents. And at that meeting we did say that we would be happy to assist if we could actually, if there was a business case to be made. In relation to the roads, it was actually only one business who supported the idea of reintroducing the Essex County Council road. It's not a council road, it's an Essex County Council. All other businesses thought it was a mad idea, because actually what they want to do is increase the footfall walking in and around, and they actually felt that actually that would be much better. And the final one, in relation to the free parking, again, there was no interest in that, because actually if you increase the free parking to 2 hours, you automatically decrease the footfall of people going into the shops to buy things. And actually the businesses were saying they would prefer to keep it as a 1 hour. So that's the feedback, leader, from the meeting that both me and the local councillors attended 2 weeks ago.
Thank you, Chairman. There appears to be a number of different views going on here. The feedback that we've been getting is the traders have been disappointed with the response so far. You've had your meeting. I wonder, not in my 3 minutes, but in your 3 minutes, whether you could remind us of the actual action points arising out of the meeting you had with the tenants, and how that has been communicated back to the traders. You were talking a little bit just now about your short-term aspirations to improve Saanich Fair and Bush Fair. I'm just wondering how short-term this is, bearing in mind we are still awaiting the economic development strategy, which has still got no date on the Board Work Plan and is now well overdue. One of the issues which probably doesn't affect the traders quite so much, but certainly affects the residents there. I attended the residents meeting last week. Is cyclists. Now, you can have as many police and what have you and CCTV there as you like, but unfortunately they can't do anything because there's nothing. There's no law preventing people cycling on the pavement in the Stow. Now that is a major issue, both daytime, late afternoon, and the evening. And certainly an action point that would be required is a local bylaw to achieve that, or possibly even an Article 4 directive. If you're concerned about how much any of these things will cost, well, of course you will see later on in the agenda that there is a forecast increase in rental income from the Stow of £52,000. So, not having enough money to do these things, I'm afraid, will not be an excuse. So, we in the opposition, we, the traders, we, the residents, are still looking for a positive response from the council as to what they can actually do and when.
Okay. Very quickly to respond to some of those concerns. The action plan is that we're assisting the traders to set up their own trading association, and again our officers are working with them, because actually the meeting that we attended was very positive. there was a lot of collaboration, not only with the businesses but with the community associations who wanted to get involved in it. One of the examples that we had at the meeting was around youth offending, and where we had young people who were hanging around. Is there anything we could do on a very constructive way? There is the opportunity of opening up a youth club in that particular area. And many of the shopkeepers said that actually if young people did want to come and get some experience, they would be more than happy to invite them into the shops to give them assistance and stuff like that. CCTV has always been planned, it has all been recognised that the static one is fine, it's the moving one that needs to be upgraded on that one. We're hoping to show the new signage to the businesses because the officers will be holding another meeting with them. We're avoiding up till Christmas, so it will be early in the new year, about the signages that will need to be taken place. And also, can I remind you that the Stow is full. We've got one empty shop, and there is one that's interested in going in there. One closed, and within 2 weeks we had a pet shop that had already been opened in there. So businesses are wanting to come into the Stow, and they are wanting to invest in the Stow, and we must take that opportunity. And the Christmas fair, as this has been recorded, starts tomorrow evening from 5 o'clock and all day over the weekend. And I would urge all councillors, if they possibly could, not only to come, but bring their purses and their bags and actually support local businesses and local organisations to really make a difference. The final point, Simon, in all fairness, the businesses did not mention bikes at all at the meeting that we went to, and we did go round afterwards, not only dealing with the petition, but actually were there any other issues. There were the issues about the teddy bears and the flowers on the benches and stuff, which has been picked up and dealt with. But honest, no mention at all about cyclists.
No, I'm not suggesting there was, but to say there was a separate residents meeting where it was their number one concern, and they don't want to lose the police. They can't understand why people want the police to go. They can't understand.
Well, all I can say is the businesses. That's what we were asked to do. That's what we did.
I thought about one thing, simply because Tony didn't cover it. Am I right in assuming that the consultation on implementing a public space protection order is still going ahead?
Absolutely, there's no changes to anything.
So the police are looking at implementing a public space protection order covering actually cycling and alcohol, and the formal process that needs to be gone through in order to implement that. My understanding is the consultation, if it hasn't started now, is due to start imminently, with a view to going through the formal process to implement that public space protection order. Right, thank you. Right, we're now on item 8, the forward plan, for noting on pages 7 to 15. Any questions, comments? I'll simply note, before we start, just simply note that clearly the local plan is down for this meeting. You'll notice it is both later on in view around February when it's likely to come to Cabinet, but there is an agenda item specifically that will provide an update on where we are in the process. Anyway, Mike.
Chair, it's just page 15, the Economic Development Strategy, and Simon helpfully, when he was talking about the Stow, brought this up. It was very interesting going on the visit to the enterprise zone that was arranged by officers and the administration. I'm grateful for them for doing that because it was a very interesting visit. And equally we've just had Small Business Saturday. Given that the economy is forefront in everyone's mind, irrespective of political colour, would it not be sensible for the administration to at least, and I've said this before consistently, bring forward some interim reports on the economic development strategy? I appreciate some of the limitations, but perhaps given that the local economy is forefront in our minds and is being debated today, that's something that the administration may want to take in mind. It's being debated today.
Me to respond?
Yeah, cool.
No, sorry, this comes under my particular area. We have considered various options, but actually the report is ready to go to the overview working group. I think it would be wrong of us now to then be putting something in without that the councillors having the opportunity to have a look at it. And actually, the councillors may then come up with that suggestion about something if in fact they don't agree with what we're hoping to develop as a result of this. So we're so close to the end, it would be, I think, personally inappropriate to do that, but I will look forward to the views and opinions of the Scrutiny Committee, and it may be that they might well come up with that recommendation.
Yeah. Just to very briefly add, Chair, all I'm asking for then is, as you've so progressed, some form of timescale other than putting it right at the back of the forward plan. Because actually, I'm sure you agree, Tony, it's a very important report.
Thank you. I do. I will make sure there is a date for the next issue of the forward plan. Right, if there's nothing further, I think the forward plan is so noted. There's been no separate decisions taken outside the normal process by portfolio holders. At 9. Lots of decisions have been made though. Item 10, the Treasury Management Strategy Statement on pages 16 to 28.
I've moved that, Chair.
And I will second it. I don't know if you've, any questions?
Just a comment, Chair, that despite the uncertain world in which we're operating, the Treasury team under Mr. Freeman is still doing a remarkable job in protecting our resources and achieving a return on those resources.
Yeah, I absolutely endorse that. I mean, clearly, as it says in the report, the priority is security and liquidity in terms of managing the risk in our investment, but nonetheless they do manage to achieve a good return given the general economy. So thank you for that. I'm happy to endorse that. If there are no further comments or questions, the recommendations on page 16, A and B, are we agreed?
Agreed.
Agreed, thank you. So item 11, the award of the Asset Management Services Framework Agreement.
I formally move that item, Chair.
I second, Chair.
Any questions or comments?
Just a comment, Chair, which was fairly thoroughly taken apart at the Anti-Sand Floor on Tuesday, and rather than replay the arguments, I'll note what was said. And it's good.
Great, okay, so in that case, the recommendation on page 29, A, that we enter a further call of contract with Savills, are we agreed?
Agreed.
Thank you. Which brings us on to the Joint Finance Performance Report, Quarter 2, on pages 41 to 69. So I will move that.
Seconded.
So just a very brief introduction. I mean, so once again, a really strong financial control, a small underspend. So credit to the officers for achieving that. In terms of the key performance indicators, again, a strong performance. There are clearly the ones that are not achieving, the exceptions are noted in the report. There are sort of in three categories. There are some that are due to seasonal variances, and just note that they are better than the equivalent quarter last year. There is clearly some outstanding issues with overflowing bins. There are comments in the report around reviewing the siting capacity and what have you, of particularly around the town park and over the weekend, and actions are being put in place to address those. And then the final one is around homelessness and people in temporary accommodation. Now clearly that reflects a national position, largely completely outside the council's specific control. We have to deal with what we are presented with. I certainly like to give credit to the housing officers who spent quite a lot of work in sort of prevention of homelessness and early intervention, and that certainly makes a not good position, I will fully accept, prevents that from getting significantly worse. So that's my sort of introductory remarks. I don't know if anyone else has got any, well, start with questions first of all, and then we'll go on to any comments and contributions. Any specific questions?
Chair, page 60, you touched on this in your introduction, litter bins overflowing. I mean, this tags onto a wider point that has been discussed at successive cabinet meetings about street scene cleanliness and litter in general. In my own ward in Old Harlow, we have a very successful community-led residents association litter pick every month. And what is quite interesting with regards to this issue is, and it's not actually me who's been leading on this, I have to pay tribute to my colleague, Councillor David Carter, who on scrutiny has been leading a piece of work about pride in our town, after he had a visit with foreign visitors, was it not, that saw some of the terrible states of our grass verges because of littering and problems associated with that. So he's taken on something very constructive with the scrutiny committee that's got cross-party support, to be fair, to actually deal with these sorts of issues. But the problem is, litter is a growing problem in the town. Although, okay, it points out that only in Q2 it's missed the target, there is wide reports, not just from councillors but residents too, about the problems of litter in this town. And, you know, it's taken Councillor Carter to approach the officers and now have a meeting with John Grundy to actually get something going on this and to tackle it. Why aren't the administration doing more to tackle litter in this town?
Don't you want to make some general remarks and get more just onto that? Or?
Well, Chair, the KPIs,
there are specific places where these problems occur. And what is being looked at is to provide more capacity for the bins where they become overflowing. We are looking at some new initiatives in terms of being able to intervene before these problems occur, but at the moment that is the way in which the particular problems of overflowing litter bins are being addressed.
So I'll just have some more general remarks. So, look, I absolutely fully accept that there are sort of at least three elements to this. There's sort of education, and part of that's about pride in the town. There's about enforcement, which is about catching those people who actually drop litter or whatever, and then there's the remedial action, and this KPI reflects, in essence, the remedial action, i.e. emptying the bins and picking up the litter after the event. There has been a plan, a sort of a detailed action plan addressing all of these areas, and it covers things like Keir going into schools and talking about the impact on litter, not just in terms of the money and the look of the town, but environmental impact on wildlife and the like. Clearly enforcement is always difficult because you have to catch someone in the act. The council has taken firm action where that's been in place, but I accept this is an area we need to continue to focus on, and certainly I'd like to see post-February continuing action around the education and enforcement in this area. And I have asked, personally, not just in response to Councillor Carlton, I completely respect the contribution you've made, to look at refreshing this broader action plan around tackling litter amongst the sort of education enforcement and remedial action areas.
Following on from what Councillor Charles has just said regarding litter, I remember a number of years ago when we raised concerns about the accuracy of the data that was being generated in terms of litter around the town. There was actually a review, and it was actually found that the data being generated was inaccurate, and it was recalibrated as such. Following that, there was also but there were also penalties associated with failure to meet certain targets, which would be levied at Keir Harlow at the particular time. I wonder if we could have some information, obviously not here, but I wonder if we could have some information sent to us regarding whether any penalties have ever been put forward.
So yes. Yeah, sure. The issue of measurement on this particular KPI is something that I personally have been going on about as long as I've been on this council, and which I appreciate is not really as long as maybe I went through, but it's
I think we all have.
It's over 4 years. And the way it's been measured has been changed several times in recent history. So we're now in a point where having So this KPI now, which is not the same as it was 2 years ago or 4 years ago or 6 years ago, is about when a bin is reported as overflowing, when it gets fixed, because the original KPI was how the number of bins that were overflowing. And that was a combination of self-reporting and then reporting by the public and whatever.
I appreciate it.
So I absolutely understand that this is an area that we need to focus on because it has an impact on the town beyond the mere aesthetics. In terms of cost to the council, in terms of the impression it gives both visitors into the town and local residents. So it is something I'm going to continue to focus on, and I'm happy to provide the data in terms of performance. Although clearly the regime is going to segue seamlessly into the HDS in February. So it will be a mixed reporting period next time we and I'm sure that Simon, as you wrote from the board, is sure that is the case. Right, sorry. So we're clearly moving to sort of contributions and debate. Are there any further contributions to debate? Mark?
Yeah, moving on, I think, to everyone around the table. The national trend, you are quite correct. It is unfortunately homelessness and rough sleeping is increasing throughout the country, and that's obviously sadly reflected in Harlow. But just to point out a couple of issues. The government recently been passing a bill, the Homelessness Reduction Bill, which has got all party support at central government. I think there's a few caveats about funding, but generally it has all party support in reduction of homelessness. And it's, I've asked officers to look at the implications and opportunities that will bring to Harlow. But also this week, it's quite relevant that you've mentioned about homelessness. This week I have signed along with officers an application to government for funding, extra funding that's been made available by the government to look at the issue of homelessness and rough sleepers. And Harlow Council this week has applied for funding from the government. So hopefully, I'm obviously fingers crossed, that bid will be successful with the government to bring extra funding. Our officers are stretched beyond belief, and I welcome the comments that the leaders made about the work that officers are doing. They're doing a fantastic job on homelessness prevention and assisting where they can, but it's an increasing problem. Just to put some meat on the bone, last year alone, applications on homelessness and such issues in this town raised by 35%, and that's a staggering figure. And I think we need to really, hopefully our bid to the government will be successful, but it's certainly something this administration is taking very seriously. Thank you, Chair.
Can I just add to, I think what was a very important point that Councillor Wilkinson made. I volunteered last winter at St Mary Latin Church and stayed overnight with some of the homeless guests there, and will be doing so this winter. And what is quite interesting is finding out some of the local stories that some of the homeless in this town, the struggles that they have faced. And for me personally, having never been in that environment and met those people and spent time and built a friendship with those individuals, it's interesting to see some of the wider issues that we as a country need to address in terms of mental health and wider issues far removed from politics, to help people get out of a cycle that they're stuck in, and to ensure that they can fulfil their life ambitions. Because many of the people I met, very well educated, had skills, but just got in a cycle of particularly in mental health was the clear trend of those people that I met. And I hope that we as a community can recognise the work of the volunteers, not just in the churches, but Streets to Homes, and I'm sure someone will talk about that. But the volunteer base in this town that does so much for homeless people is a credit to the whole of the town.
Thank you. I was going to put my hand up before Mark did, but he stole my thunder. Particularly with regard to the bid that the council is making in conjunction with Streets to Homes, an organisation with which I'm associated, and you may be aware. The homeless situation as a real is saying, it's getting worse for a variety of reasons. And there was a very good article in the Star today with Councillor Wilkinson, expanding on what he's already said. And one of the irritating things now is that we are now competing with London boroughs who are sort of coming in and they've acquired one building already and they're sort of making inquiries about a number of others. To put their own to put their own people in. Councillor Wilkinson's predecessor was always very quick to say that it's a long-term issue about we're just not building enough houses and there just isn't enough housing to go around. So the council is putting its bid in. The homelessness reduction bill, the private members bill, which has been adopted by the government, has more work and should have more money attached to it. Will help to hopefully prevent homelessness, but it's not going to create any more housing, and we need to get on and build more houses.
Sorry, I feel uncomfortable because this second time I'm actually going to agree with Joel Charles on these particular issues. Because we can it's a bit worried, isn't it? It is a real concern, and we can sit around here talking about it. But unless we actually do a root cause analysis of why people are now having to choose to become homeless, we're never going to solve that problem. And we've seen that in our local landscape with the closure of Acacia House because of the criteria of Essex County Council, which has left young people homeless. Councillor Danvers often quotes the resident who was living in a tent for a period of time. We also have to see the damage that is and the consequences that are being caused around the cutbacks in social care. And these aren't political points. This is from Joseph Rowntree Trust and other trusts that are saying the consequences of the government actions are putting people at a disadvantage. We've seen the changes around the benefits rules and regulations, which is causing hardship. But actually, Councillor Charles is absolutely right. The hidden cancer is around mental health. And the difficulty is it's been underfunded, undersupported and under-recognised for far too long. And it'll be very interesting when the Sustainable Transformation Programme is ever published by Hertfordshire and West Essex, due out, we're told, next Wednesday. It will be very interesting to see whether or not mental health is mentioned at all. But until we, as a community, and the politicians and the ambassadors of our community start talking about these issues and coming up with solutions, we will find more and more challenges in relation to this. But we also have to talk, I know our MP is no longer with us, but actually there is a consequence of every political action that has taken place, which is now resulting directly in real hardship for very vulnerable people in our community tonight. And I think we should all feel very sad that we're not doing more to address that. And my final ones, I would also like to echo Councillor Charles as well, is that it's absolutely completely amazing how our community sector, our volunteers have got together. Look at the amount of volunteers that are now coming forward to help homeless people. Look what is happening to food banks and the support that's being provided. Shame that we're having to do it, but at least our community, Harlow, is rallying to that call, and certainly we should be thanking all those volunteers for all their dedication and all their time that they're going to be given, not just over Christmas, but actually throughout the whole year.
And to continue the same theme, I think Councillor Charles has hit the nail on the head. When I was working with a homeless charity when I was at university, so that was 20 years ago, on the south coast, mental health was the key reason for homelessness, mental health and drug addiction or alcohol addiction. And I don't think that's changed over the last 20 years. What we are now seeing is homelessness being more in your face, but I think correspondingly we have a lot of people in this town that are very, very caring. What I would say, and the press are here tonight, and I'm sure each of the councillors around this table have had an increase in notification of homeless people in their mailbag, in their, brought to their attention, entire Facebook groups talking about individual homeless people. What I've always found, and what the general public need to be aware of, is very often those people are already known to the system and have very complicated histories. And it's not just as easy as, there's a guy sleeping rough at the Stow or British Fair and, let's all get him a house. because very often there are complicated factors that government agencies, charities can't talk about because it's someone's individual personal circumstances, that we can't just turn around to the members of the public and say, well, actually, the problem with that person, and getting that person into accommodation is X, Y, or Z. But those issues do exist. So I think, it would be great for the press to let people know that the number of people that are homeless in this town, they're already on people's radar, they're already on people's books, but they are complicated cases, very complicated reasons for the fact that they are homeless. And it's not just Harlow Council or Essex Council or social services or the local council looking the wrong way and not taking any attention of those homeless people. I just think when we've got the chance to get that out to the local public, we should.
Yeah, I'd just like to indicate, and what have you, and you're absolutely right, that the reasons are many and complex and interrelated, almost always never singular, a single reason. So yes, there are mental health issues, substance abuse issues, some of those are symptoms rather than causes. I think the rise of private unsecure tenancies hasn't helped. Benefits changes, the whole raft of changing personal circumstances, the whole raft of issues that are many and complicated. I would like to endorse what Councillor Charles has said and others have said around just paying credit to the many voluntary organisations. I know Simon's involved with Streets to Homes, a fantastic charity that led by Kerry Eastman fantastically well. I know very well. The chocolate run that provides more sort of immediate respite rather than trying to address the more fundamental issues that Streets to Homes is absolutely working with. And I would cite the churches of many denominations in Harlow as well. It is a significant issue. It's no accident that the Harlow Star has had a couple of articles focusing on this. There was a recent shelter report that came out I think last week that highlighted this as an issue as well. It's something we need to focus on. The council is doing what it can, but this needs sort of a very broad attack on a number of levels. Thank you. Are there any further contributions to on the joint finance and performance report? On that note, then, the recommendations on page 41. That we acknowledge the favourable variance and a small underspend and the on or above target of 90% of performance indicators. Are we so agreed?
Agreed.
Agreed.
Thank you. So moving on to item 13 on page 70-71, the Housing Revenue Account Q2 Finance Report.
I'd move this, Chair.
I form the second, Chair.
Any questions? Contributions? In that case, it is relatively straightforward. Recommendations on page 70, A to C, with the favourable variance in the budget. Are we so agreed?
Agreed. Agreed.
Move on to item 14, the capital programme Q2 finance report on pages 78 to 90.
So moved again, Chair.
I form the second again, Chair.
Any questions or comments?
Which I have given notice. One refers on page 87, the non-housing capital programme, paragraph A10, where we're talking about the Rutherford Ben's civic assistant being upgraded from reserve. I was just wondering whether that was from the Investor Save account or reserve and how that's going to be repaid. Do you want both questions or should I do them one at a time?
Oh, sorry. Old habits. Simon tells me that in fact government actually provided monies at the time for this. We actually have set aside £90,000 and that's where, from that particular reserve, and that's where the 55,000 comes from.
Thank you very much. The second question is table 4 on page 83. Actually, it's page 84. What's the repayment plan for the 7.5 million of borrowing supported by the non-housing capital programme? Is that repayments from the general fund over the life of the assets evolved, or are we anticipating capital receipts or a mixture thereof? And is there a prudent limit to repayments from the general fund to service the borrowing on the non-housing capital programme, given the stresses on general fund finance?
Simon, pick this up.
The borrowing for non-housing capital programme investment is currently being funded by our internal borrowing because we're taking advantage of the interest rate position at the moment and the fact that cash invested is achieving low returns. So effectively we're funding that borrowing internally. But what we're also doing in the general fund budget, as set out back in January, we have an ongoing general fund budget for minimum revenue provision, and ultimately that's the proxy for the debt repayment that's contained within the general fund, and it is aligned to asset life.
Thank you, Chair. I have a comment as well, but shall I do that now? Refers to the Housing Capital Programme, Table 2 on page 80. It's a sort of comment in terms of every cloud has a silver lining. Where £2.5 million of the Housing Capital Programme is funded by capital receipts from Right to Buy. £2.5 million is probably around 5.5 years worth of rent reductions. So although the HRA is facing a 1% reduction per annum on rents, which is about £400,000, that's £2.5 million, which is going some way to compensate for it. And of course, we're losing around, or forecast to lose around 100 properties from the housing stock, which will therefore mean we've got sort of savings on repairs and housing management as well. But say it's very helpful to have the capital receipt to fund the capital programme. But I expect from your point of view, you're sorry about losing the council houses.
Well, indeed. I'll just reply to their comment on the trying to compare the rent reduction, which is clearly a cumulative impact over many years / decades, and so the impact on the housing revenue business case is in the tens of millions of pounds, and that's not really comparable with a one-off payment that we Right to Buy. Anyway.
It represents, Chair, 99 houses. If it was 100, you can actually do the arithmetic for yourself of actually seeing how much in terms of asset value this local authority is losing. Money actually has to be paid over to the government for that as well. And at the end of the day, those 99 houses are once again reducing the stock. We've already had a reduction of 10,000 houses on this authority. We wouldn't have a waiting list if it wasn't for this. We wouldn't have the accusations in regards to people coming in from outside the town, the multi-occupancies that we actually have. We wouldn't actually have the 5 landlords that actually own 1,500 houses in this town and charge a small fortune for rent. So yes, it might be a tiny silver lining to Simon, but quite frankly, this policy has been disastrous for this authority.
I should resist the urge to go on at length about the negative impacts of Right to Buy, maybe for another occasion. Are there any further contributions? Councillor Johnson.
Thank you. Paragraph D1, the violent of the £130,000 to finally demolish the Hummingbird. I think it was in January 2014 that you announced the plan for that area, which was going to be mixed retail, homes for sale and homes for rent. Is that plan still the same? Is that plan the one that's going to go ahead once you knock down the Hummingbird?
Yes, the reason why the Hummingbird was still standing, of course, is that what we wanted to do is get a developer in who would knock it down for us, so that therefore it would make it financially advantageous to the council. The difficulty is because there's been a number of break-ins, and like most buildings of that era, has asbestos in it, and even though the asbestos is quite safe, The trouble is more and more break-ins is breaking down the fabric, and therefore we've had to make the decision that we will remove that hummingbird, and that's why this is in the report. And certainly I'm hoping in the early new year we will be able to bring out some draft plans with a key developer to renew and regenerate that particular area. It's one of the many hatches that we aspire to make better.
Given that the council now have to spend the money to actually knock the property down itself, does that mean there's going to be a greater percentage of houses for sale on that site rather than for rent?
In all fairness, Andrew, it's a question that we're too far away to ask, because until we actually know what the design, what the developers are talking about, we don't know what the costs and what the values are, but also what our aspirations are in relation to that. I do know that I've met with Mark and the Residents Association on several occasions, and we want to keep them very close and involved in any of those decisions so that there is local ownership for the future development of that area.
Any further contributions? So in that case, the recommendations that span pages 78 and 79, A to B, are we agreed?
Agreed.
Thank you. Right, that brings us on to item 15, the Harlow local plan update. This is basically a sort of for information purposes.
Obviously, the report contains the detail behind the 4 items A to D. They outline the progress towards being in a position to submit our local plan. We've more or less completed now all the technical work that's been behind the preparation of the local plan, and at the last meeting last week we had the final consideration of various policies, including the development management policies that will be a necessary part of the local plan. Also, we should note the response from East Herts on its own formal position with regard to the capacity and delivery targets for housing development north of Harlow. This was obviously one of the issues that was discussed at the our special council meeting, and East Hertfordshire, together with their consultants, have made their formal position quite clear as to what they would expect Gilston Park to realistically deliver over the terms of the local plan period. Obviously the allocation of sites to the south and west of Harlow have now been formally included in the Epping Forest District Council consultation, and as we are a formal consultee, it's been necessary for me to respond to that consultation and make clear our views in 3 parts. Firstly, that we do accept the total figures for allocation of housing in the smart area. Secondly, that we object to the sites to the south and west of Harlow on the basis of highway and transport issues. And lastly, that we note the absence of any reference to social housing allocation in the Epping Forest District local plan, which obviously we want to discuss with them further, because we expect the whole basis of the duty to cooperate discussions we've been having is that both East Hertfordshire and Epping Forest districts were to assist us in providing the affordable housing which we are unable to provide within the town's boundaries. That was one of the bases, apart from the general growth and economic activity, which was why we support additional growth around Harlow. And lastly, the accelerated and more widespread work being undertaken in consultation with ourselves by Essex County Council Highways to come back with some much more imaginative measures to address the problems that this development is going to cause in various parts of the town. So those are the main parts of activity that are ongoing, and obviously I would ask the Cabinet to note them for the time being.
I'll just add a couple of brief points myself. So I think one thing to note is that St Albans local plan has just been rejected principally on the basis of a failing duty to operate, and indeed but not taking into account unmet housing needs in adjoining authorities. So that's really something that we need to be cognizant of. And the other thing you'll note in the forward plan that this is scheduled for the February cabinet meeting. There is still a lot of stuff to do. So I've just sort of heads up that that is going to be a challenge to say the least. Our meeting that day, and I also note in the same context that the housing white paper has not yet been published. It is due soon. My understanding is next week, and that may well have something to say about housing numbers, which may impact in this regard. So there is still a little bit of uncertainty. There's a long way to go. I note the motion that Councillor Johnson has put to Council next week in terms of the nature and form of the consultation when it happens. But yeah, there's a long way to go in this legal space. And there's much debate both inside Government Council but in the wider community of Harlow before this is an appropriate place. Councillor Charles.
Thank you, Chair. Lots of questions for Councillor Purton, which we'll be looking forward to. What I find surprising is this is called the Harlow Local Development Plan Update, but this is just a restatement of things that we already know. My first question to the portfolio holder, if you can answer it, is that I note in this report, and obviously officers are having conversations with Epping Forest District Council. Now, Epping Forest District Council has local development strategic forums. It's just out of interest, will officers be attending the future local strategic forums by Epping Forest District Council, given that the council's position now is to oppose development to the south and west?
We have our officers regularly, almost bi-weekly, meet with Epping Forest District Council and conduct detailed discussions about all these aspects.
So I'll be more precise because you didn't answer the question. There are 2 strategic forums coming up, Councillor Purton. In terms of reference, note that officers from Harlow Council can attend those strategic forums. There is one strategic forum on land that is bordering Harlow and Epping, and then there is one strategic forum that is squarely about Epping Forest's local plan and the development of that district. Are council officers going to attend one of those 2 meetings? Yes or no, Councillor Purton?
Yes.
Thank you. On that basis, I now want to come to an area that is close to my heart, which is the devastating plans by your administration, and you're leading on this as the portfolio holder, to basically bulldoze Churchgate Street with the Harlow North East development, which you quietly don't note in this report. Residents have been very vocal when I spoke to them and wrote to them in Churchgate Street and are very angry about this. Why have you neglected to talk about anything about Harlow North East in this report? Clearly you would have had discussions about Harlow North East with Epping, so will the portfolio holder give us an update?
Directly. So this is an update about the process leading to a local plan. The local plan, when it comes out for consultation, will articulate what the strategic sites are, and there will be plenty of opportunity for debate and consultation on that plan. This is not an attempt to encapsulate that local plan, which is in an early draft form, has many areas of discussion to go on, including members of your group on the local plan panel, in terms of getting to a point, hopefully sometime in February, but not guaranteed, where we can discuss that. So the reason why this update, which is an update on the process, as it says, doesn't attempt to prejudge what's going to be in the local plan that goes out for consultation. It's precisely because we're not going to prejudge it.
Well, Chair, my point is, surely there should have been some process comments in this update about how you're going to proceed on Harlow North East, because you've mentioned the other issues that were debated at Special Council, but you've totally neglected what was said at Special Council. In his introduction, the portfolio holder spoke about the debate at Special Council. Surely there should have been a reference to that, because it is
There is.
in your plan.
It's item 5. It mentions it.
But this is specifically about the process leading to a local plan for consultation. And the reason why specific issues around the development to the south and west of Harlow were mentioned here is because they have specific implications on the process, and in specifically the response to Epping Forest's local plan that is currently out for consultation. That is all. This is not I'm not going to entertain a debate on what is eventually going to come out in the local plan for consultation sometime next year.
Well, okay, Chair, I'll move on, but actually this is, as you recognise, this is of great public interest, and we have found what you have said in public and what you have said in private turns out to be wrong on many occasions. So I'll ask another question to the portfolio holder. I note in this report that those officers and councillors that have been looking at these planning matters have said that there are no sites within Harlow that will be built on, because you don't want to impact on green spaces and playing fields. What I want to get clear is, at the 2014 consultation, which I responded to on the local plan, there were sites identified like Jocelyn's playing field and the normal Booth green space. Can you categorically confirm that he will not build on them? That's what I want to know.
Sorry, Danny, can I just repeat what I've just said? I'm not going to have a
but
debate now
this is a public
about
interest.
what is going to be in the draft local plan that will be in consultation. You can list specific sites and what have you. That is part of the process of getting a local plan for consultation. Now, it doesn't say no additional sites that weren't identified in the process. That's what it actually says in the report if you read it. So look, so if you're going to continue to try and get commitments one way or the other about specific sites, I'm not going to entertain that in this meeting. There is a process we need to get to. There's a local plan panel which will put a draft local plan before Cabinet and Council and then for public consultation that will identify potential sites with the rationale for whether they're suitable or not suitable, and that is the point when we can have that debate. Now is not the time. This is not about trying to agree.
Well, Chair, that's my final question on that. But what I will say to you is, you've said that this is a Harlow local plan update. It certainly isn't an update. But my final question to Councillor Purton is this. It has become quite clear from comments from other people who sit on the local plan working group from other councils that you say one thing and then another at different consecutive meetings. Why are you purposely trying to sabotage the local plan of Harlow, Councillor Purton?
So you're going to have to be specific about that, because that's a very serious allegation. And I'd like to have that substantiated, because certainly I've been at most of the local Duty to Cooperate meetings and separate meetings with East Hart and Epping Forest and Uttlesford leaders, and we've been entirely consistent in our.
I'm very happy to state on the record what I have been told, and I'll say it very clearly to Councillor Purton. I have been told that Councillor Purton gave promises to other local authorities, and I have been told this by other councillors from other authorities, that on one hand that you were in favour of having development on the south and the west. This is what they have said, and I want him to comment on this. And then that was withdrawn. So they don't know where they are with Harlow, because you said one thing and then another. So I want you to address that specific point, Councillor Purton, because that is what they have said, and I can corroborate it.
As you quite know, if you took note at the special council meeting, I personally am not against the developments to the south and west of Harlow, but I am putting forward the council's policy, which is that they object to the sites to the south and west of Harlow. So you can rephrase the question as many times as you like. That is the situation. I don't make promises to anybody. I'm not in a position to make promises to anybody. I represent the council's policy when I attend meetings with other authority leaders.
My questions, that's it.
And I'll just have to repeat what I said about attendance at these public meetings. So I have been entirely consistent about making sure that the council extant position on development in South and West. All the councils were aware of it. And in the case of Epping Forest, those conversations go back over a number of years. From when I was the portfolio holder for this some time ago. At the time we had the original resolution. Now, whether they fully realise the impact of that at the time, that is for them to say. But if anybody from Epping Forest is saying that there's been an inconsistency or a change in view, they are both plain wrong, and I would very much like to know who those individuals were, not in an open session. So I can have a conversation with them. So certainly the conversations that I've had separately to these public meetings with the leader of Epping Forest Council, which I do on a regular basis, and met him again today, our position has been entirely clear and consistent. Councillor Dawson.
Mr. Chairman, the item before us is local plan update. It is not unreasonable to...
Let's be clear, this is an update on the process for getting to the local plan. It is not a...
That's not what the title of the
Oh, look, so if you're going to get all pedantic about misinterpreting the title and then not reading the report and clearly what the recommendations and the notes are, in order to make some political stunt, which is becoming increasingly common both in this chamber and elsewhere, then that's fine. But there is clearly a process for getting to a draft local plan that will come before Cabinet, that will come before full council, and will then go out for full public consultation, and then for examination in public before a planning inspector. That is the time when we get there, and we're not going to get there this year to have those debates on specific sites. I'm not gagging debate, it's just recognising, not jumping the gun, the stunt you pulled last time in this chamber about working drafts that clearly have not been through political scrutiny, well, that's fine. If that's the way you want to play this, that's okay. But I'm more interested in getting the right result for Harlow, and there will be an appropriate process for getting to a local plan that guarantees the houses we need, that supports economic regeneration and jobs, and gets the infrastructure we demand. Are there any further conclusions on this update on the process of getting to a local plan? In that case, the recommendations, we're just noting, we're just noting on page 91. Item 16, referral from the Cabinet Overview Working Group Medium-Term Financial Strategy.
Move this, Chair.
But basically just, it's not entirely clear from the report, and I'll second it, but basically the Cabinet Overview Working Group is just asking the Cabinet ensure that changes arising out of the autumn statement and future government proposals are taken into consideration, which clearly we will do.
We're doing that, yes.
But particularly away from this, unless anyone's got any pressing things they want to raise. So on that basis, we will clearly take those things into consideration as and when detail is forthcoming. Right, so the next item is 16B, which is the a referral on the local council tax proposals, which is in a supplementary document.
Move this again, Chair.
And I will second it. Anybody got any?
I could actually, not turn this on, could reassure people that we maintain with Essex and the Fire Authority and the Police Authority £25,000 hardship fund to try and alleviate problems as and when they arise. And we do all in our power to actually mitigate it. People actually have genuine hardship in actually being able to pay this. Our officers really bend over backwards to actually make sure that the genuine difficulty to pay is taken into account. Otherwise, I personally wouldn't be supporting this.
Yeah, not much to add. I mean, clearly this is a very difficult position for the council.
It's dreadful.
Under the name of localisation, we've basically...
But we can't afford to do anything else.
burden, but there are, in my view, no choice, and I think that was the reluctant conclusion that the Cabinet Overview Working Group came to when they discussed this item. So there's no further contributions, then the recommendations that span pages 2 and 3 of the supplementary report, recommendations A to D, are we so agreed? Agreed. Right, so then we're at just the minutes of the Housing Standards Board and the Cabinet Overview Working Group for noting that there are no particular comment on that then. So noted. There be no matters of urgent business. This meeting is now concluded at 8:50.